Well, yeah, this is it. This is the D-Roc Hellboy. As you can see, it's that's the body shape of D-Roc, obviously. It's a 5-string bass. There were a lot of people. Originally, the D-Roc was a 4-string model, but a lot of people were asking for a 5-string model, so that's when Dingwall started to produce 5-string models in the custom shop and later on also with the standard series. And we also decided to go for a 5-string version for this bass. The tuners are by Hipshot, really awesome. As you can see, this is also a completely new designed bridge. It's a very solid bridge for 5-string basses. Really like it. As you can see, you can put the strings right in. You don't have to get it through the bridge anymore or through the body or whatever. Works really well. It's really solid. You won't cut your fingers when you're playing live. At least I didn't. And well, it has 3 pickups, just like the other D-Roc. What can I tell you about the configuration of the pickups? Well, here we have a rotary switch. If you put it on setting number 1, it has 4 settings. Setting number 1 is bridge pickup, single. Setting number 2 is bridge pickup, middle pickup together in parallel. Setting number 3 is the middle pickup single. And setting number 4, which is actually like my signature sound, that's bridge pickup, middle pickup together in parallel with the neck pickup in series. So you have all 3 the pickups at the same time. And it really creates a very, well, thick and rich sound, I suppose. This bass also has an onboard distortion circuit. Yes, it does. It's fed, you can see here, with one 9-volt battery. It works with a magnet system. Very solid. And how does it work? Well, it's actually very simple. You can switch it on and off with this push and pull button over here. This is the volume knob. If you have it like this, it's completely passive. If you switch it on, the onboard overdrive circuit will be switched on. You can hear later, but you'll hardly notice any difference in volume. It's just a tiny little difference. Then we have, like I said before, the rotary switch to switch between the pickup configurations. Then we have a blend knob. So if you put it completely on 0, you'll have a complete dry sound. And you can actually mix in the distortion this way. And what you'll notice is that there will hardly be any difference in volume. So that's also a pretty cool feature for this bass, is that because a lot of distortions, when you switch on your distortion, you guys will probably notice it before, you'll always kind of, pump up your volume a lot. And that's what we try to avoid. We don't want to change the gain of this bass too much. So you have way more control over your sound that way. And last but not least, this is a tone knob, but this is a tone knob that is actually connected to the distortion circuit. The distortion circuit, so if you put it on 0, you have this very mild overdrive tone. And if you go completely to 11, then you have this very, very aggressive distortion sound. About the distortion, this distortion is actually based on the Darkglass. Here we have it. Simplified version of the Microtube's B7K Ultra. So basically what you have on this bass guitar is a Darkglass B3K with a blend and tone function on it. So yeah, we went for an onboard distortion circuit based on the B3K by Darkglass. And so yeah, it's pretty funny how that story came together, because I remember when Dingwall built my first two bass guitars. I told it to Hugo and Douglas from Darkglass, and they really liked the idea. Said, okay, well, perhaps you can use our preamp on that bass. What I didn't know is that back then they were already in the development of what eventually became the tone capsule, which is a clean preamp. So what I thought is that they wanted me to have a whole B7K system built into my bass guitar. They said, no, that's not what we had in mind, but we kind of like the idea, so perhaps we can realize it somewhere later. And I kind of forgot about that idea until, yeah, the whole idea of the Hellboy bass came by, and I told Sheldon the story. He said, like, I never tried it before, but, you know, what the heck, let's just give it a try. So we just went for it. You know, it was an experiment, it was a risk, but we went for it, and personally, I think it turned out really great. It turned out really, really great. So, and what's the benefit of it? Because, you know, on one hand, you can also say like, hey man, I can also use just a separate pedal for it. That's true. I totally agree on that. But the cool thing is that you have the whole blend and tone function within the reach of your finger. So, for instance, I always play with in-ear system on stage. And sometimes I switch between plectrum style or finger style. And sometimes I want my overdrive to be a little bit more subtle. So if I wanted to be, you know, have a little bit of a less sharp sound, I can do it with my pinky over here and, you know, cut it a little bit. Or if I wanted to sound a little bit more aggressive, okay, there you go. Then you can boost it a little bit. So you always have the reach of your sound within your fingers and not within your feet. And especially in my case, when I walk around on stage, I never walk around and walk back to switch my pedal. My pedal is on during the whole show. My overdrive is always on. So this is also 100% my sound that you'll get. When we came with the idea for an onboard overdrive, the first thing that pops into you is like, okay, which features, like which controls are you going to put on the bass? Because if you look at this pedal, you know, you already see like 8 knobs and all the switches in between. Do we really need that? And that's the cool thing about, you know, the technical department of Dingwall. They are so good at thinking pragmatic and making things practical. So we took out like the real essence of that pedal, which in my point of view is the blend knob and the tone knob of the drive. So it's really amazing how they were able to, you know, strip down the pedal and get that in a, you know what I mean? Look at this bass, it's a very thin bass guitar, it's a very light bass guitar. They were able to, you know, to get all those controls, all those electronics in this small cavity over here, which is amazing. And for those of you guys who will probably ask, okay, that's really cool, but what happens if, for instance, I'm out of battery, or what happens if this system crashes? Because to be honest, I was also a little bit afraid to switch back to an active bass, because I've always been really into passive basses. One, because I like the headroom in my sound. That's something that we, you know, that's something that we were able to tackle to get everything, you know, to keep the gain, you know, quite similar. It doesn't really boost your signal. But what happens if it breaks? Because that's my trauma with with active basses. Since I've been touring, it happens quite sometimes that because of all the traveling and all, and you know how it happens when you go to the airport, that people are smashing your flight case, throwing around with your instruments, which really hurts to see, but it happens. And it happened a lot that my onboard preamp broke down during a show. And that's, you know, that's a pretty traumatizing experience, I can tell you. So that's something I also tell the guys, like, how the hell are we going to tackle that? He said, okay, don't worry. Jeffrey, the technician of Dingwall Guitars, he came up with this really cool idea that just in case if the onboard overdrive, you know, crashes, like I said before, it will automatically switch back to passive. So you don't have to worry if something breaks down or whatever, it will always still go back to passive and you'll always have sound. And that's a big relief, I can tell you. And last but not least, we own the name to Hellboy, but we own it to Mike Mignola. There you go. Here is the real cool artwork of one of my all-time favorite comics, Hellboy the Wild Hunt by Mike Mignola. And this is actually the artwork of the cover of that story. And I'm still surprised how they managed to, you know, get this on a bass guitar. It looks amazing. Also the colors look really authentic. You also have the really cool logo here on the headstock. So even if you're not a bass player but you're a big Hellboy or Mike Mignola fan, this is already worth getting. I know it's a expensive collectible, but it's definitely worth it. And last but not least, it's also, you know, it's 100% licensed by Mike Mignola. So yeah, you're definitely having a really 100% authentic Hellboy item over here, which is really cool.